There's a place, small enough to vanish from most maps. A stretch of land barely wider than New York City. No oil, no gold, not even fresh water of its own. Surrounded by rivals, uninvited by its neighbors, left alone to sink, or build. And somehow, against every expectation, it built. Steel, glass, code, control. And not just a city, but a machine. One that runs 24 hours a day. One that thinks, stores, calculates, trades, faster than most countries ever will. A state engineered with purpose. With almost no room for error. How did it happen? Who designed it? And what were they willing to do to make it work? This isn't the story of a city that got lucky. It's the story of a place that rewired its destiny, through force of will, ruthless timing, and precision most nations can only envy. A country that gambled its future on efficiency, on order, on technology, on the belief that survival isn't given, it's architected. But every system, no matter how perfect, has its fault lines, and behind the mirrors and algorithms, a different kind of tension hums beneath the surface. This is Singapore, and this is how it got so crazy rich. The truth? It's more calculated than you think, more fragile than it appears, and more revealing about our future than most are ready to admit. In 1965, Singapore was cast out. Not with a celebration, but with silence. It was not granted independence. It was abandoned to it. No military, no natural resources, no water supply of its own, just 2 million people, and the rising tension of collapse. Its leader Lee Kuan Yew did not cheer. He cried. Cameras rolled as he spoke to the press. His face didn't mask the despair. Lee Kuan Yew, Vo. This is a moment of anguish. We are determined to survive. But even then, he knew, survival wasn't the goal. Control was. Lee wasn't a populist. He wasn't a dreamer. He was a technician with the instincts of a wartime commander, Cambridge educated, legal mind sharpened on British institutions. But underneath, a deep distrust of chaos, and a cold belief, if no one gives you a future, you build one. He ran the nation like a startup, but one without room for failure. Every resource was accounted for, every mistake, fatal. He reorganized schools, crushed strikes, imposed housing laws, broke monopolies. The city was reprogrammed. Fast. His cabinet was small, technocrats, economists, urban planners. He didn't just ask them to govern, he asked them to engineer survival. One policy at a time, Singapore became a machine. Education was militarized, public housing became mandatory. The port was expanded before it was needed, water was imported from Malaysia. But Lee already had a plan to replace it. No handouts, no waiting, no room for ideology. The world barely noticed. But something was taking shape. Lee Kuan Yew didn't wait for companies to come, he went out and found them. In boardrooms in California, in trade shows in Tokyo, in policy dinners in Zurich, with one message: come to Singapore. We'll give you more than space, we'll give you power. While other countries debated ideology, Singapore made a bet foreign capital over national pride. The plan? Turn a swamp into a precision-built hub, a city designed not just to function, but to attract. Low taxes, zero corruption, lightning-fast approvals, and one condition: bring your tech, train our people, leave your politics at the door. Hewlett-Packard, Texas Instruments, Seagate, Micron. They didn't come for the scenery. They came because Singapore promised something no one else could: stability at scale. While neighbors stumbled through coups and currency crashes, Singapore was laying fiber, building semiconductor clean rooms, reclaiming land for ports bigger than its entire downtown, and constructing entire city districts years before the workers would even arrive. The country wasn't just open for business, it was a business. The deals were quiet, strategic, tax holidays, sovereign land leases, direct recruitment of global engineers, all hidden behind the image of a disciplined Asian miracle. But beneath the success was a precise layer of control. Immigration was managed like a spreadsheet, urban planning modeled on logistics networks. Even the number of escalators in a mall was calculated by foot traffic forecasts. This wasn't just economic growth, it was scripted transformation, every element timed, every risk mapped. By 1980, Singapore had moved from rubber exports to microchips, from labor-intensive docks to automated logistics, and from survival to supremacy, and it did it all in under 15 years. But here's what the outside world never saw. Some of those early partners weren't just tech companies. They were tied to militaries, intelligence networks, foreign governments, and what they left behind changed the DNA of Singapore's future forever. By the mid-1980s, the world started watching. Singapore wasn't just surviving anymore, it was growing in ways no one had seen before. GDP was surging, infrastructure was flawless, and underneath it all, a new engine was forming. Manufacturing had served its purpose. Now it was time to upgrade. Singapore began shifting from labor to logistics, from sweat to systems, from assembling chips to designing where and when they would move. This pivot needed more than engineers, it needed strategists. People who could think like generals but act like investors. Enter Philip Yeo, not a politician, not a public speaker, a tactician who treated Singapore like a high-speed prototype. Philip Yeo Vo, build fast, think ahead, never apologize for ambition. He scouted tech CEOs like a spy chief, built intelligence dossiers on companies before approaching them, and when he found talent, he didn't recruit them, he contracted them. Brilliant students were sent to MIT, Caltech, Stanford, on one condition: you come back, you help build, and if they didn't, blacklist, gone, done. Behind the glossy facade of Singapore's rise was a relentless machine. Ministries operated like VC firms, ports like neural networks. Housing policy was paired with economic demand modeling. Entire tech parks were pre-leased before the buildings were even approved. And the government's role, not as a referee but as lead architect, funder, and enforcer. By the 1990s, Singapore Inc. had emerged a hybrid entity, part nation, part tech conglomerate, with stakes in telecoms, chips, biotech, shipping, education, AI. Global CEOs were either on board or they were on a list. The country's transformation was no longer about survival, it was about positioning. To become the most advanced, most efficient, most invulnerable tech node on Earth, and yet, at the height of this dominance, cracks began to form, not in the numbers, in the people. For decades, Singapore moved like a precision watch, efficient, calculated, and always on time. But what happens when a system built for speed begins to show strain? The world saw skyscrapers, AI-powered ports, clean streets, safe nights. But underneath the surface, another story unfolded. Migrant workers, the invisible engines, lived in shadows. Cramped dorms, 12-hour shifts, wages withheld. No unions, no protests, no exit. While citizens walked through spotless malls, some paid for convenience with their silence. Censorship wasn't obvious, it was ambient. Newsrooms learned which stories not to chase. Activists learned when to stop speaking. Critics learned to whisper or leave. And then came the next transformation. Smart nation. Every streetlight, every train door, every corner of the city embedded with sensors. For efficiency, for safety, for innovation. But also surveillance. Cameras that recognized faces. Apps that tracked movement. Gateways that logged every tap of a digital ID. For a city-state built on control, technology was no longer just a tool, it was a nervous system. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong inherited not just the government, but a legacy machine. His challenge: maintain the miracle, but loosen the grip, encourage creativity, without losing control. But there's a problem. Innovation doesn't wait. The very tools designed to keep Singapore running could one day become the tools that unmake it. Algorithms don't understand nuance. Automation doesn't understand ethics. And in a city where everything works, who decides what shouldn't? As Singapore grows richer, faster, smarter, the question is no longer can it succeed, it's can it breathe. The age of automation didn't start in Silicon Valley. It started on the southern edge of Asia, in a city barely larger than a single US county. In 2023, Singapore flipped the switch on its greatest creation yet, Tuas Megaport, the most advanced shipping hub ever built. Not a single human steers the cranes, not a single container misplaced. AI directs cargo, autonomous vehicles execute commands, a global artery run like a motherboard, and that's just the beginning. The nation is now morphing from a physical city-state into something else, a digital platform. Bureaucracy replaced with APIs, banking, healthcare, legal services, all modular, on demand. Citizens log in, not line up. Foreign investors plug into a sovereign SDK. It's not just smart nation anymore, it's nation as a service. But here's what the world doesn't see. While other powers fight to control technology, Singapore has become neutral ground. In biotech, quantum computing, AI governance, global summits quietly happen in its boardrooms. Rival countries trade data policies over coffee. Researchers from the US and China share a lab, inside a country smaller than New York City. And then, in 2024, a stunning development, barely reported. Singapore signed 2 AI security pacts, one with China, one with the United States, each deal confidential, each leader believing they had gained the upper hand. And in the middle, Singapore, the code breaker, the broker, the bet. With one foot in Beijing and the other in DC, Singapore is no longer just playing defense, it's architecting the board itself. But here's the tension. Every system has limits. Every bet has a cost. If the world fractures along tech lines, if AI becomes weaponized, if code becomes currency, if privacy becomes obsolete, can Singapore stay neutral? Or will its balancing act finally tip? The gamble that saved Singapore in 1965 might be the very gamble that undoes it in 2035. This story began with nothing. No water, no army, no allies. Just a city carved from swampland, led by a man who refused to fail. Lee Kuan Yew didn't govern, he engineered. Singapore was not built like a country, it was coded, like a system. Every policy a function, every outcome measured. Then came Philip Yeoh. The battlefield changed, from rice to semiconductors, and Singapore pivoted before the world even knew it had turned. Tech was never just a tool here, it was strategy, it was survival, and now, it's power. AI ports, government as an API, diplomacy through data, trade routes built on silicon, not steel. But there's a paradox at the heart of this miracle. The same control that built the nation could one day be its weakness. The same tech that brought prosperity might outpace the ones who wield it. Can a country built on mastery master the unknown? Can a system optimized for perfection handle chaos? Because the future isn't orderly, it's volatile, fragmented, filled with black swans and invisible wars fought through firewalls and finance. Singapore wasn't supposed to survive. It didn't just survive. It rewrote the rule book on how a country can engineer wealth. But in a world where code is currency and attention is the battlefield, can Singapore stay ahead forever? Subscribe if you want to uncover the hidden power moves shaping the global tech future. And tell us in the comments, is Singapore the model for tomorrow, or a fragile miracle?